Welcome to Inheritance, how to make the most of what you inherit. The goal for this presentation is to give you some information and tips to help make the most of what you inherit. It could be a gift of a lifetime if you know how to manage it, or it could come and go, only to be a distant memory with nothing to show for it. Good for you if you're in line for a substantial inheritance of millions of dollars, but even more modest amounts can change your life. There's an estimated $8.4 trillion transferring to the baby boom generation by 2030. Studies done at the Center for Retirement Research and Center for Wealth and Philanthropy at Boston College indicate about 30% of Americans expect an inheritance. The estimated average amount ranges from $177,000 to $300,000. An inheritance can be tricky to manage. Besides the uncertainty of the amount and the timing, inheritance money can feel surprisingly different. It helps to have general information on the technical side and a few good tools to sort and prioritize your options. Understanding the short and long-term impact of each of your options will help you avoid regrets and make good decisions. In this session, we'll cover how to sort and prioritize your new possibilities, how to avoid the 3 things that tend to cause regrets, how to handle taxes on inherited retirement accounts, how to manage expectations. This Worksite Financial Solutions seminar is offered through your employer and your retirement plan advisor. Worksite Financial Solutions is a guidance-based, beginning-to-end retirement solution designed to help you create confidence in your financial life. The Worksite Suite offerings includes workplace education that's tailored to your unique needs and profile. It's also supported by a qualified LPL financial advisor who's committed to providing you with unified, coordinated advice. Whether you're joining the plan for the first time, accumulating assets, or seeking help with a career transition, Worksite Financial Solutions pulls all aspects of your finances into a single, manageable focus that will help you save time. Ohio State University's Center for Human Resource Research found that most inheritors save about half of what they inherit. The other half is spent, donated, or lost. For an inheritance of less than $1,000, about 40% spend it all, according to the study. Of those inheriting $100,000 or more, 20% spend it all. This is a sobering reminder for anyone expecting an inheritance in the future. Spending can bring short-term pleasure, but it can also mean more stress in the future. The study also suggests that if you can anticipate and do some pre-planning, you'll have a better chance of making choices that allow you to both have some enjoyment now and use the rest to support your future enjoyment and security. Inheritances can be tricky for many people. The money usually means new possibilities. Maybe for the first time there's money to actually spend or to invest, rather than to pay for home, food, gas, and the kids. Most people who are able to hold on to their inheritance and make good choices have given themselves time to explore their options and to get used to the way it feels to have money available. The feelings part may also include the grief or sadness they experience because they lost someone they loved. Sometimes there are regrets for things said or unsaid, or time not spent with the person now gone. Many times there are pent-up desires that just get acted upon without much planning, like a 4-year lease of an expensive sports car taken out by an otherwise sensible and conservative man. Once the rest of the modest inheritance was gone, the monthly payments caused financial hardship, and the car lost so much value he could not get out of the lease. He sees it now as a silly and maybe unwise thing to do, but at the time it seemed like a good way to feel better after his father's funeral. Your inheritance may mean you can do anything you want, just not everything you want. The question to ask yourself is, what's most important to me now and in the future? A good way to answer this question is to start by making a list of everything you'd like to do with this money. Step 1. Write everything down that comes to mind, even if it seems far-fetched. If there's someone else who will share in your inheritance, have him or her do the same. Step 2. Once the list is made, ask yourself if you could do any 2 things on the list, what would they be? Put a 1 and a 2 in front of these 2 most important items. Next, ask yourself the same question again. If you could do 2 more things on the list, what would they be? Place a 3 and a 4 in front of these items. You may feel you could do even more things on the list, but stop for a while and think about how you could get these top 3 of 4 items done. Put your resources toward getting the most important things done first, and then go back to the list as you prioritize the remaining items using the same set of questions. But before you start to put your plan into action, wait a week and repeat the exercise. In your handouts, you'll find a worksheet to help you make the anything, just not everything list. Before you start, you may want to make copies so that you can go back a few times and rethink your list. This may be a new exercise, and you may still be adjusting to the grief of your loss. Sometimes it takes a while before you really know what belongs at the top of your list. One way to think about what to do is to consider 3 general categories: long-term financial strength, security, and memories. With a little planning, you can put some money into each category. The examples in long-term financial strength may seem like the right things to do, but before you put all the money into paying off the mortgage, carefully consider your entire situation. You may be better off taking care of your health, such as paying for some deferred dental work on a problem that will only get worse and cost more in the future. Or maybe it's time to get some additional training or earn an advanced degree that will open up new opportunities for you. This is one of those times it may pay to work with a financial advisor to help you work through the trade-offs and possibilities. It can be difficult to see the full range and impact on your own. When Margaret passed away, her 3 nephews each received $75,000. It wasn't a giant amount, but enough to make a difference. One nephew shared with us that he and his cousins took their families on a week-long vacation at the beach that they enjoyed with Aunt Margaret as kids. He then met with his financial advisors to decide if it was better to pay off a $50,000 business loan or invest that amount for the future. His loan payment was $1,000 a month, with 7 more years to go before it was paid off. It turned out he would be ahead if he paid off the loan, but only if he, instead of a loan payment, invested the $1,000 a month for 7 years. Eliminating the $50,000 loan also increased his credit score, which helped him save on insurance, lowered car payments, and helped him lock in a very low rate when he refinanced his home. Of the 3 common regrets, the most troubling one is to have not only spent the money, but to end up in debt you didn't have before the inheritance. At the time Sarah inherited money from her uncle, she was living with 3 roommates in a 1-bedroom apartment. She had a low-paying job to cover the rent while she searched for a job in her chosen career. This was the first time in her life she had money beyond a tiny savings account. She took her father's advice to put the money in the bank and stayed in the tight living space. He explained how the $100,000 could be a down payment on her first home once she got the higher-paying job and knew where she wanted to live. But after a few more months of frustrating job hunting, she decided to treat herself to a small shopping spree. Then she rented a place at the beach for the summer. Then there was the car to get to the beach. Once she let go of the idea of keeping the money safe for the future, the spending increased. She got her own apartment that she could only afford if she used her inheritance money. 2 years after the inheritance, the money was gone. Gone, and then more than gone. She did get the higher-paying job, but now had to dig herself out of debt rather than buying her first home. Getting the most from an inheritance usually takes some planning, and you may want to consult a financial advisor. Together, you can figure out how to put some away for the future, use some to be more secure now, and still have some to enjoy a little. Before you buy a bigger home, carefully consider the cost of ownership. House poor does not mean you couldn't afford to buy the house. It means that the cost of ownership keeps you from other important things like vacations, saving for retirement, and owning a reliable car. Set short-term and long-term goals. Consider how you can use the inheritance money to help you achieve the goals. Think about if you would ever get to the goals without the inheritance money. Many times an inheritance is a once-in-a-lifetime event. Use a system to dedicate an amount to each of your top goals. If you don't use a financial advisor to help you with financial planning, use a simple system like the Anything, Just Not Everything worksheet. Try to find a way to hold yourself accountable to your system or financial plan. Avoid committing to long-term payments you can't afford without the inheritance money. Situations like Sarah's apartment, the sports car lease, and being house poor all seemed affordable and a good idea at the time, but none of them panned out to be a good idea in the long run. Depending on the form that your inheritance takes, you'll have different opportunities, responsibilities, and tax consequences. Sometimes it does come in a check made out to you. This is the simplest form of an inheritance. The estate taxes are usually paid before you get the money and other assets. In most cases, you won't owe any income tax until you either receive income from the investments you make or you sell an asset for a profit. Many people prefer to open a new account at their bank or with their investment advisors. The idea here is to separate the money, at least for a while, as you make your plan for its highest and best use. It will also keep others, with whom you may have joint accounts, from viewing it as new money to them. If you inherit an investment account with stock, bonds, and mutual funds transferred to your name, meet with your financial advisor before selling anything or liquidating the account. This is a good time to review all your investments, including your retirement accounts, and make an investment plan that suits your current needs and goals. You may be a beneficiary of a trust that has specific timing and instructions regarding income and principal distribution. Spend time with the trustee so you understand the trust directives. Your loved one may have established rules affecting income and distribution based on your needs, not your desires, for example. Retirement accounts such as IRAs, Roth IRAs, pension plans, and 401k accounts have specific requirements when it comes to withdrawals. We've all heard the term IRA, but do you know what it stands for? Federal law defines it as an individual retirement arrangement. This is slightly different than the common definition of an individual retirement account. Although similar, an individual retirement account is simply one form of the broader range of individual retirement arrangements that exist under the federal law. Here's a list of 15 different types of retirement accounts. It's not uncommon for people to have at least a few different types. If you inherit all or a share of more than one retirement account, it's good to have a way to organize them before you make any decisions to cash them in. In most cases, the money you take out of these retirement accounts is taxable with the exception of Roth IRA and a few others. You may have the option to stretch the distributions over long periods of time, thus delaying the tax and allowing money to continue to grow tax deferred. This is considered a big advantage, but you need to make sure all the paperwork is done correctly or you'll lose out and have a hefty tax bill all in one year. Before you do anything, get all the information and requirements. I provided you with the retirement account organizer in your handouts. Here are the 5 main categories for your retirement accounts organizer. You'll find the information for column number 1 on the account statement. Pay close attention to the name on the account, as it will be necessary to use the exact name when you complete a transfer-to-transfer transaction to an inherited IRA. For column number 2, the name of the institution and the contact number should also be on the account statement. The contact person on the statement may be for general information. Ask for the person who is a specialist in inherited accounts. Keep this person's name and contact information handy. For number 3, the amount will be on the statement. It's normal for the amount to change if it takes a few months for you to either liquidate or make the transfer. For most retirement accounts, the distribution options to list in number 4 will be either transferred to an inherited IRA to stretch the required distributions over 5 years or life expectancy, or take the lump sum and pay income tax all at once. Requirements in number 5 refers to the forms and paperwork that may be required. The deadlines are dates connected to possible tax penalties. In every case, you should get expert advice from either a financial advisor, a tax preparer, or at the very least, the retirement account specialist at the company or institution holding the accounts. The most common forms of retirement accounts are IRAs and 401k plans. Both have rules and options you want to be aware of before you cash them in, but here are some tips. First is to do no harm, meaning don't take any money out or close an account until you know your options and understand the tax rules. Just like you can't put toothpaste back in the tube, once you take money out of an inherited retirement account, you can't get it back in. The primary motivation is to manage the tax bill that comes with taking money out. In most cases, you'll have the option to close the account and take the money, usually with 20% federal income tax withholding. The full tax due will be calculated when you file your federal and state tax returns, but this is just one of many options. There may be other choices that may save you money and make a big difference in your long-term financial well-being. Step back and think long-term what this money might mean to you in 10, 20, or maybe 30 years. Ask a financial advisor to help you assume a reasonable rate of return and estimate the income you could receive if you choose to stretch the distributions over your lifetime. Albert Einstein called compound interest the greatest mathematical discovery of all time, and it is one of the advantages of IRAs. The most common form of inherited real estate is the family home. Whether you keep the home or sell it can be both an emotional and a financial decision. Mental health expert Dr. Maura Summers favors giving yourself some time to process the emotional aspects. The financial experts want you to be prepared for the cost of maintaining the home, the repairs that may need to be done, and to take time to establish the current market value. The estate tax, if there is any, will have been paid by the estate, but you may have tax when you sell the property. But there is good news in the way the capital gains tax is calculated. If you sell the home, you will receive favorable tax treatment called a step-up in basis. Basis refers to the cost of an asset, in this case the home, for the calculation of capital gains and other taxes. When someone dies, the IRS steps up the basis of the property to the value at the date of death. In many cases, this means a big tax saving. For example, if the house was purchased 15 years ago for $100,000, but it's worth $200,000 at death, the basis for calculating capital gains tax is $200,000. If you sell it for $200,000, you avoid the capital gains tax on the $100,000 gain. If you inherit a home and choose to live in it, the IRS treats this as a personal residence. At the time the house is sold, the stepped-up value will apply for capital gains taxes. If you love it, keep it. If it has real value and importance, get it insured and appraised, and then decide where you'll keep it. Your mother may have kept the jewelry in a safe deposit box at the bank and never wore it. You can decide to do the same, or you may want to wear it more often and keep it at home. Both art and jewelry can be tough to value and tough to sell without professional advice. Take your time to learn about the process, who the professionals are, how they work, how evaluations are done, and about the current trends. Keep in mind that many things someone leaves behind may have no market value, but very high sentimental value. Feelings may count as much as money, and they last a very long time. Many families have successfully managed by asking each member to make a list of 10 things they'd like to have. It's not a perfect solution, but far more manageable once the desires are on paper. Sometimes the toughest part of an inheritance is the unmet expectations of the other people in your life. Your spouse may have had his or her own ideas on what the inheritance would mean to him or her individually, or to you both as a couple. You may have noticed that expectations can drive happiness. Think about how it might feel if you had your heart set on your favorite dinner. When you get to the table, your second favorite dinner's served. Even though it may have otherwise been a great meal, it just doesn't taste as good as it might have because you expected your favorite. This can be a similar reaction for someone expecting something specific from your inheritance. Expectations that are not discussed can be the source of unnecessary disappointment. You've received a worksheet to help clarify and manage expectations of others, as well as that of your own. It can be very helpful to make a list and organize who expects what. A good starting place in managing expectations of others is to ask them what they expected you would do with your inheritance. What did they hoped for? This is a time to just listen to what they have to say and give them the respect of being heard. A good way to respond is to say you'll be taking time to figure out what is possible and what your priorities are. Let them know it may take some time and you may be working with a financial advisor, but until you get a plan, you won't be making any decisions. It's just too early to be making big decisions. Give everyone time to relax and let the emotions calm down. Taking your time and doing some planning with a professional is a good idea for everyone, not just a valuable technique for managing expectations of others. An inheritance is a special time in life with opportunities to make some decisions that may serve you well for decades to come. Thank you for your time and attention during this presentation.